Hello everyone, I'm Chester44, also known as Fly, and welcome to this Let's Play of Citizen Sleeper. Last episode, we spent most of it on this particular ship, helping out the people there. They're stubborn and they don't really want to get involved in shit, and they just want to survive and be left alone. But we did what we could to provide some help, and at least learn the way they were. With that done, it's now to go to the dust houses for the Ember Step ship, which, thankfully, we're actually almost done with. So, one more systems repair, and we can speak with Aki. I see you've been contributing. Aki stands next to you at the dust house window. I was unsure what to expect when we joined the Flotilla on its voyage to the Eye. But after the journey across the system, then the quarantine, and then the flux reaching all the way out here too... Thank you. The other ships have only been interested in sending us supplies, but we grow all we need. She gestures at the dust house. What the dust houses need, that is the problem that concerns us. She smiles and turns to you. Shall we go inside? Into the dust house. Where else? She taps away at a panel by the window. Seems only fair that after your help with the support systems, you get to see what it is that you are maintaining. Aki leads you to an opening beside the window. You pass through a dark changing room. You notice Aki is sliding on an oxygen mask and visor. She looks at the swirling dust inside. Inside, it's just like Ember's Step. Thin atmosphere, constant dust storms. Nothing that will bother you. She passes you a mask. The dust isn't exactly pleasant to inhale, however, so take this. You hold it to your face. She leads you through a short decontamination tunnel with its fizzing panels of purifying light, and then through into the dust house. Immediately, the wind and the heat hits you. You feel the rough waves of dust scattering across your face and peer through the amber murk. Your feet slide on shifting piles of sand. Welcome to Step, or an emulation of it at least. Aki's voice sounds distant, echoey. The terraforming process only managed to provide a limited atmosphere around the moon, one which is slowly escaping. It's been like that since I was born, so I got used to the idea. You catch her bright eyes through the amber dust. So did everything else that lives there. You feel something hard beneath your feet, beneath the sand, like a coil of rope. What is under the sand? This is Step Silk. It's one of the plants we established on Step. She kicks away some red sand. Like any bast fiber, it can be retted and woven into clothes. I'm wearing some made from it myself. It's one of many species adapted to Step since the Solheim collapse, which is why it must be preserved. She stares out into the swirling dust. It is as much a refugee as we are, and the dust houses hold hundreds of other species. You look at the pale, unassuming root threaded thickly through the sand. Aki watches you silently. Had enough? It will be easier to speak outside. Aki leads you back out through the decontamination tunnel, which blasts the dust from both of you with a burst of metallic-tasting air, and into the changing room. Aki hangs up both the masks, patiently awaiting your questions. What happened on Ember's Step? Aki pauses, pulling her shawl around her. She looks small and pale inside its layers. Step was already a doomed world. When Solheim gave the terraforming contract to Cybele, they believed they could build an atmosphere, but the moon's erratic orbit made it impossible to maintain. By the time of the Solheim collapse, the atmosphere was already fading, and Cybele's attention was on Ember's hearth. After the collapse, Cybele fell too, its researchers scattered across the moons, and any central organization lost. Since then, my parents' generation worked tirelessly to survive, to adapt what we had to the failing moon. The steppe silk, the other adapted species, are the life's work of the steppe's colonies. So when the flux started to collapse our computer systems, corrode and destroy our life support, our water supply, our agriculture, we had to leave. Aki sits heavily on a nearby bench. Soon the only traces of steppe will be on this ship. Aki begins to cry quietly. You're unsure what to do. Sit beside her. You sit on the bench beside her as she sobs. You understand why this ship, why the refugees from steppe are so different. Their world was already dying when the flux arrived. Ember's steppe is a terraformed moon, a partial atmosphere, established colonies, agriculture, and yet when the flux event started, its people had to leave. You think of the eye and the delicate web of decaying systems it rests upon. What hope does a ruined station have against a wave that corrupts, corrodes, and collapses? Aki interrupts your thoughts, rubbing her eyes. Not everyone left. There wasn't room to take all the people and fill the dust houses. My parents, their friends, many others stayed. We carry the steppe for them. Perhaps there is hope. We learned not to talk of hope on a dying world. There is meaning for them, and any future they can build with the time they have. She stands up. I wanted you to understand the importance of these dust houses, of what they contain. She leads you back out into the corridor. If the flux events continue to reach out to the eye, we need to build protections to ensure their safety. Aki meets your eye. What about the people? Aki looks away. We aren't idiots, Sleeper. We chose to carry this burden. We will survive. These dust houses are already decaying. I have seen it. We had thought that they would last longer, but that last flux event... Help us. Please. I will. When you are ready, we will begin the preparations for reinforcing the dust houses. We need to be ready for the next flux event. Aki's eyes shine with the last of her tears. I will see you soon. Aki drifts away down the corridor, leaving you alone once more at the viewing window, watching the ragged, delicate traces of the moon known as Ember's Steppe. Okay then. If the dust houses are to preserve their closed biomes, they will need shielding against the flux and protecting from their slow decay. Improving the dust houses isn't the only way to sustain the steppe silk. With intuitive care, the plant can be made more resistant. And dust house shielding. Aki has devised upgrades that will protect the dust houses from both flux and their slow decay. She needs you to implement them. Well, we can do this one easily. With remarkable intuition, you not only support the steppe silk, but harden it. Aki smiles when she sees the result. And I can do this with engineering. You work inside a dust house, layering the internal walls with careful plating. The rattle of the dust becomes a comforting backdrop. Ooh, that's some good rolls. Figure I may as well make use of them. Alright, we'll come back soon. I will need to buy some food, which I can do easily. At the farm stacks? Yeah. I can barter for food here, it's no big deal. There we go. And then we go ahead and use one of these. I'm glad I salvaged up so much of this. Cycle complete. Those are some very good rolls. Pity we don't need that many good ones. We'll probably get more scrap, but the dust houses are done. There we go. You and Aki stand side by side at the viewing window in silence. The dust swirls and you glimpse the twisted root systems of the steppe silk through the ochre haze. After all these cycles, you feel a strange connection to a world on which you have never set foot. Aki shifts from foot to foot. She seems restless, eager to speak, but unsure of what to say. The dust houses look good. Aki smiles at you warmly. They do. She pauses and turns back to the window. What is the value of all this? Of preserving a world we should have left behind. Heritage. Aki is silent for a moment. Our practices, our lives require the materials, the patterns that STEP provides. But if those practices remain unchanged while the universe around them shifts, aren't they already dead? She pauses. What is better, to preserve at all costs, or to allow things to be destroyed by change? Aki paces away, lost in thought. I'm grateful to you for helping protect the dust houses, for ensuring their slide into decay is delayed, even averted. But now I find myself at an impasse. The stability of the dust houses changes things. It makes me aware of how blinkered we have been. Aki stops to look at you, her posture somehow different. If the ecosystems of STEP, if its people cannot grow to meet the future, why preserve it? Are we just slaves to the preservation of what came before? You can change. Aki comes close, holds your hands in hers. We must change. We must change to live. I have seen that in you. The STEP, these people, this ship, should serve more than heritage, than history. They should serve the future. There are those in the flotilla that need clothes, that need food, that can benefit from the gifts of the STEP's ecosystem. I want you to invite them. Can you do that for me? How? I know that Soul sent you. You can tell him Aki, captain of the wind's long shadow, invites all the people of the flotilla to come. Captain? You never asked. You want to know about the flux, no? About its purpose, its origins. You wish to protect your home as we could not. I'm afraid I don't have much to tell you. It is an exotic wave of sorts, an energy that passes through matter. It shifts the very charged particles which run through our electrical systems. It is possible to shield against it as you would radiation, as we have done with the dust houses. But only while it is weak. The flux event here was much like the first ones we felt on Ember's Step. Localized, destructive, but bearable. But in time, its strength grew. I don't know if it will be the same here, but it is coming from the center of the system, from the close orbit of Helion's star, H1. That is all we could uncover. She is silent for a moment, unsure of what to add. I'm sorry I cannot offer more, but you are always welcome on this ship. I hope I will see you when the others come. She squeezes both your hands. I hope this ship, these dust houses, can be more than a museum. I hope they can be a home. With this, she turns and leaves, and you feel that word, home, resonating within you like a struck bell. And it looks like we can speak to Soul again. When you arrive at the bridge of the Pilgrim Seed, Soul is waiting for you. You wouldn't believe the messages that have come through in the past few cycles, Sleeper. He smiles. The ship from STEP has sent a goodwill gesture, a whole cache of supplies from their own farms. I'm not sure how we'll use them, but the gesture is a welcome one. Song, meanwhile, are apparently accepting supplies again, although a little reticently, if I may say so. I don't expect them to change anytime soon, it should be said. And what I'm wondering, Sleeper, is what part you had in all of this. Soul eyes you, waiting for an answer. I helped where I could. I've come to expect that of you, Sleeper. He smiles. You look at Soul, his eyes bright and eager, and wonder what he sees in you. Are you a tool to be used or an ally? It can be hard to tell. I want to show you something. Sol squeezes her shoulder, turning you to face the lift. He leads you along the axis of the ship towards the engines, the clanking of his suit accompanied by the constant hammering and welding that fills the echoey bulkheads of the Pilgrim Seed at all hours. With the cordon lifted and shuttles able to go out to salvage scrap and barter for supplies, the ship has become a place of transformation, moving towards some state yet to be revealed to you. You look at Sol. What is his plan here? What is he preparing the Pilgrim Seed for? Or are his sharp eyes simply focused on making it through the next cycle? Suddenly, Stoll stops in front of a huge bulkhead door, like the seal on the front of a dry dock hangar. He signals to someone in a cabin high up attached to the wall, and they begin the process of opening it up. The Pilgrim Seed was built as a short-range freight carrier, you know? The amber warning lights on the bulkhead door send spinning shadows across Sol's face. We built it to ship the entire harvest from thousands of farms to the silos at Passero. When we realized we'd need to leave, it was the biggest ship we could muster. Sol raps on a metal plate. And somehow she's carried us all the way out here. You led the evacuation. Me? Oh, not even close. I was a farmer, had a whole load of land and people to run it, and my people helped convert this place for the long trip. He looks at his feet. Others organized the evacuation and debated the plan. What happened? Not one of those folks made it. We were out in the black a long time before we got here, Sleeper. Things happen. The upshot is I was chosen to take over. I guess my crew trusted me, and I knew the ship. I argued, reminded them I'm no leader, and that I'm sick, but, well, when service chooses you... A loud klaxon sounds, indicating the bulkhead doors are ready to open. They groan as they slide back, the metal squeals echoing through the vast ship, bouncing off its hard-plated walls. At first, all you see is darkness. Then the lights go on in huge strips that stretch back and back as far as you can see. The space in front of you, a vast bay, bigger than any you have ever seen, is empty. When we left Hearth, we didn't have the time or resources to convert the entire ship. Sol begins leading you into the massive space. So much of the freight space we sealed away, shut down. But now, we have time. We have resources. We stabilized here, at least for the moment. Now is the time we make use of all this. What are you planning? What do you think happens next for the Eye, Sleeper? The flux has already hit one part of the station, and from what I know, it'll hit again. On Hearth, we lost everything. There isn't much time, Sleeper. But there is enough time to do something. Think of the number of people we can fit on here. The farming stacks, the housing. Hell, we can plant some of those mushrooms you love so much. This is the way forward. The only way. We need to fill this ship with able bodies and head for the Starward Belt. I thought the Eye was your destination. It was, until the flux hit here. Now it's just another stop. I'm glad of the chance to resupply and salvage, but we need to go further out. I want you to help me. You know the Eye. You have connections, and you can work hard. I've seen it. I know you are like me, Sleeper. You didn't choose service, but it chose you. There are other ways. If you know them, go ahead. But I'm telling you, this is the opportunity we have, now. I know it's a lot to think about, Sleeper, trust me. Sol begins to lead you back out of the bay. But think of what we can do here. The flotilla can't last forever. We need more than just farmers to make this work. We need to build a new world for ourselves. I've heard that out there in the belt there are people who've been setting up since the collapse, making something of their own. That's our future, tucked away in those rocks, far from all this. I didn't bring my people here just to let them die somewhere new. Sol crosses back over the threshold of the bay and signals for the operator to close it up. The door groans and Sol waits for it to stop. Think about it, Sleeper. But don't wait too long. This is happening now. And he leaves you there, in the silence of this vast bay, your head spinning with the thought of leaving the eye. Well, we got an upgrade point, but we need 2 more if we want to do anything else. We'll get the other one soon. Peak is almost done with climbing Briar. I'm gonna go ahead and gather up more of this. May as well. Oh, I can do one more. And that last one will go into regaining energy for free. There we go. 1 bit of scrap there for self-repair, and then we end the cycle. And now, we should go see Peak. Pretty good rolls, aside from the one. Have you ever heard of can channels, Sleeper? Peak asks as soon as you enter the bay, as if you were in the middle of a conversation. There are heavy circles under their eyes, and you aren't sure if they've moved since you last visited. The console they are working at seems to have grown too, shadowing their slight frame in a wealth of screens and wires. Can? You mean for transit? Yes, exactly. Peak turns to face you. Keomani's active negation, the name of the effect used to transport trillions of tons of materials from the surrogate systems to the core. You might have heard of it in your physics classes. At XPR, they hammered the principles into us as kids. Can. Peak recites the definition as if in the classroom. A process of collapsing spatial causality along the Euclidean distance between 2 points by negating mass simultaneously at both ends of a geodesic curve. Essentially, can channels allow for the near-instantaneous transport of raw materials between systems. They require huge volumes of energy, of course, and decades of construction, but once a can channel is established, it opens up a system for infinite exploitation. The backbone of surrogacy is what XPR called them. Peak shakes her head. They might not be able to send anything more complex than a rock through them. Complex machines and people are, shall we say, reconfigured by the process. But for raw molecularly pure materials? Whoosh! This is your research? Peak pauses. What I was trying to find out was whether the Hellion system, this system, ever had a can channel. Can channels are vastly expensive to build, to run. Not every surrogate system has one. Many use fraction drive ships to transport their materials to the nearest hub. But Solheim... Solheim spared no expense when they established this system. There's a can channel. Yup. Pete's eyes light up. They shut it down before the collapse. They couldn't run the sender-receiver station anymore, but it was there. It still is, as far as I can tell, closely orbiting our star. In fact, Peak grins. They've been building to this. I'm sure it's still there, because one of the issues with can channels are the massive waves of exotic energy they can produce when cycling up. The flux. Exactly. Peak's face suddenly drops. Someone is starting up the channel. But why? Peak sucks in a breath. That, I don't know. They start counting off information on their fingers. They'd need a lot of resources to do it, and they'd need to have people from the core systems. But there's no real large-scale extraction in the Hellion system anymore. So why would you go to the trouble? Just to trigger the flux? Peak rubs their red eyes. The flux, the wave the Khan effect produces, it's a side effect. A problematic one, but it isn't a destructive force. If it was, the core systems would have never been able to use it. So then why are colonies collapsing because of it? Why is it chewing through systems, the kind of industrial system set up to function within the range of a once-active Khan channel? Peak is getting frustrated. The moons of Ember have been terraforming since before the collapse. They would have had to deal with the flux. Yet everything we have heard from the refugees says it brought down every system they had. Peak falls quiet, thinking it all through. Your mind drifts too, thinking of the Khan channels, those vast acausal highways that prop up the core systems and their endless appetite for resources. This system has been quiet for decades. Solheim collapsed, most corporations gave up their claims, and apart from the Celis ships that came to begin work on the sidereal horizon, no one from the core has come here in all that time. You shiver as you imagine the attention of the core, the systems of logic and exploitation that created you, created your suffering, turning towards the Hellion system. A floodlight turned to this dark corner. A shrill bleep catches both of your attention, and Peak rushes to a screen, one showing a crude map of the station. On it, individual markers begin to flare up with insistent chirps. Peak looks puzzled for a moment, and then their face drops. No, this doesn't make any sense! What's happening? The fluxed nodes are appearing elsewhere on the station. Peak pulls at their hair. I set the system to alert me to other flux nodes near the epicenter of the flux event, but these are everywhere. The hub, the low end, the shipyard. How can this happen? The only reason we saw flux nodes here is because it is the most run-down part of the station. They were barely shielded. But others appearing so far after the event? Peak turns to you. You're going to need to get me the data from these nodes, and quickly. I'll keep looking at what I have here, but I need to know why they are popping up everywhere. Right now? Right now. We can talk more about Khan channels and system history when you are back, but this needs our attention right now. Peak turns quickly back to their monitor, their eyes following scrolling screens of code spewing from the newly fluxed nodes. You leave quickly, but struggle to shake the image of the spotlight from your mind. You feel watched as you cross back into the Pilgrim Seed on your way to the shuttle bay. You hurry onward, eager to outrun the fear. So our new task? Find and extract 3 fluxed nodes. She mentioned where we can find them, and we'll do that in the next episode, so this one's gone on long enough. Sounded like she said the low end, the hub, and the docks, so we'll be going to the other side. We'll see what we can find, but that'll be in the next episode. So until then, I am Chester44, also known as Falai. This has been a Let's Play of Citizen Sleeper, and I shall see you all next time.